For 30 years, my world has had a particular scent. It's a quiet, beautiful smell of old paper, of decaying leather, of book-binding glue, and a hint of cedar from the massive shelves. It is the scent of the West Wing of the Sterling University Library, a place where I am not just the head librarian, but a guardian. I am Eleanor Vance, and these books are my life's work. The West Wing is not a place of common textbooks. It is a sanctuary for the irreplaceable. We have illuminated medieval manuscripts whose golden leaf still shimmers after 800 years. We have first editions from the dawn of the printing press, their pages as fragile as a butterfly's wing. I know each book's history, each one's particular sensitivities. I know that the 15th century vellum requires a constant, unwavering humidity, and that the iron gall ink in our oldest texts will fade to invisibility if exposed to the wrong kind of light. This is a place of quiet, meticulous, and reverent care. And then Mr. Davies arrived. He was the university's new director of university services, a man in his mid-30s with a sharp suit, a sharper haircut, and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He came from the world of corporate restructuring, and he brought the vocabulary with him. In his first all-hands meeting with the department heads, he spoke of synergizing our assets, optimizing our workflows, and disrupting the traditional academic model. When he turned his attention to the library, he didn't see a sanctuary of knowledge. He saw a black hole on a spreadsheet. He called it an underutilized physical asset and a significant cost center. He referred to my priceless collection, not as books, but as inventory. I knew from that first meeting that a storm was coming. His grand project, the one he announced with the fanfare of a conquering hero, was the Digitization for the Digital Age Initiative. We need to unlock the value of this inventory, he declared in a meeting. Make it accessible to a global audience. We need to be on the cutting edge. In theory, I agreed. A proper archival digitization is a wonderful thing. But then, he unveiled his tools for this grand project. With a dramatic flourish, he had 3 massive crates wheeled into the library's main hall. Inside were 3 brand new ScanMax 5000 machines. They were sleek, black, and humming with a quiet menace. They were state-of-the-art marvels of corporate efficiency, designed to scan thousands of pages of modern office documents an hour. They looked as out of place in my library as a chainsaw in an operating room. These machines, he announced proudly, will allow us to digitize the entire West Wing collection by the end of the fiscal month. I felt the blood drain from my face. The entire collection, in a month, with those machines. It was not a plan. It was a death sentence for every book he was claiming to unlock. I tried to intervene, respectfully and privately at first. I scheduled a meeting in his new, sterile office, which was decorated with abstract art and had not a single book in sight. Mr. Davies, I began, my voice calm and even. I applaud the initiative to digitize the collection. However, the equipment you've selected is problematic. Problematic, Eleanor, he said, with a condescending little smile. It's the best on the market, top of the line, for an office. Yes, I agreed, but not for archival materials. The heat from the scanning lamps is too intense. It will warp the vellum and parch the paper. The pressure of the scanner lid will crush the 400-year-old bindings. And the automated page feeders. They will tear the brittle pages to shreds. You wouldn't use a pressure washer to clean a Rembrandt, Mr. Davies. He actually chuckled. He patted my arm, a gesture of patronizing dismissal. Eleanor, I appreciate your traditional concerns. But this is the 21st century. We have to embrace technology, not be afraid of it. These books aren't doing anyone any good sitting on a shelf collecting dust. It's time to get with the program. I realized a simple conversation wouldn't work. So, I escalated. I spent 2 days writing a detailed, 8-page memo. I outlined the specific, catastrophic risks posed by the ScanMax 5000s. I cited international standards for archival conservation. I included a thoroughly researched list of professional archival scanning services and specialized, low-heat, zero-pressure equipment that was designed for fragile materials. My proposal was more expensive, and it would take a year, not a month, but it would preserve the collection. I sent it to him as an email, with a subject line that read, "Urgent, risk assessment, and alternative proposal for West Wing digitization." I wanted a digital paper trail. I received a 1-sentence reply 2 days later. "Eleanor, I have received your memo. My decision stands. Please proceed as instructed." I had one last chance. It was at the weekly department heads meeting, when Davies brought up his project, glowing about the efficiency and speed. I raised my hand. "Mr. Davies," I said, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "I must once again, for the record, formally object to the use of the specified equipment. It will cause irreversible damage to what is arguably the university's most valuable cultural asset." The room went silent. All eyes were on me. Davies's friendly corporate mask melted away, revealing the cold, hard arrogance beneath. He looked at me, his eyes narrowed. "Eleanor, with all due respect, your resistance to change is becoming a bottleneck to progress. We cannot allow the future of this university to be held hostage by one person's sentimental refusal to get with the program. These are books, not sacred relics. You are a relic, Eleanor, trying to protect your own irrelevant fiefdom. The project will proceed as I have directed." The humiliation was absolute. The other department heads just stared at their notepads. I had been dismissed, not as a professional with 30 years of specialized expertise, but as a hysterical old woman. I returned to my library, the defeat heavy on my shoulders. My team looked at me, their faces full of worry. "What do we do?" Eleanor, my young assistant, Peter, asked. "We can't just destroy them." That afternoon, the final nail was hammered into the coffin. An email arrived in my inbox. It was from Mr. Davies, and he had CC'd the university president and the provost. It was a power move, designed to crush any last bit of resistance. The email was short, brutal, and beautifully, stupidly clear. I read its words, and a cold, calm certainty settled over me. He had just handed me the weapon I would use to destroy him. The email read, "To be perfectly clear, and to avoid any further ambiguity on this matter, you are hereby directed to proceed with the digitization of the entire West Wing collection. This project is to be completed by the end of this fiscal month, using exclusively the ScanMax 5000 units provided by the university. There will be no exceptions and no budget for alternative vendors. Please confirm receipt of this directive so we can move forward without any more delays." It was a written order, a direct, unambiguous command from a superior, and it was my salvation. I stood up and walked out of my office, into the main library room where my small team was gathered. Looking utterly dejected, they fell silent as I approached, but they didn't see a defeated leader. The worry on my face was gone, replaced by a steely, unreadable resolve. "Good news," I said, my voice crisp and clear. "Mr. Davies has provided us with a very clear, written directive. Our path forward is no longer ambiguous. I walked over to the large cork board we used for project management. I pinned the printed email directly in the center of it. In bold red marker, I wrote the title above it. Project Directive. Wing Digitization. I then returned to my desk, my team watching me in confused silence. I began to type an email. He wanted compliance. He wanted me to follow his orders without question. And that is exactly what I was going to give him. He had handed me a sword and told me to fall on it. He just didn't realize that I was going to hand it back to him, hilt first. After the damage was done, I finished typing the email. It was a masterpiece of malicious, cheerful compliance. Dear Mr. Davies, I am writing to confirm receipt of your written directive dated today, August 4th, 2025. A copy is attached for reference. My team and I are fully prepared to move forward with the digitization project. We understand the importance of the deadline and the specific equipment requirements. We will begin tomorrow morning, following your instructions to the letter to ensure full and complete compliance with your directive. We look forward to achieving the ambitious goals you have set for this important project. Sincerely, Eleanor. Vance Head Librarian, Sterling University. The first attached a PDF copy of his original email. Just to be sure there was no misunderstanding, I took a deep breath, and I hit send. The quiet click of the mouse was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a starting gun. The race to ruin was on, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. The next morning, an atmosphere of funereal silence had fallen over the West Wing. My team, a small, dedicated group of 3 librarians who loved these books as much as I did, stood before the gleaming black altar of the ScanMax 5000. Their faces were pale, their movements hesitant. They looked at me, their eyes pleading for a last-minute reprieve, a different order. I looked back at them, my own heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. Our directive is clear, I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. I tapped the printed email from Mr. Davies, which I had pinned to a large cork board. We are to proceed, using this equipment exclusively. Peter, I said to my young, brilliant assistant, you may bring the first volume. Peter looked as if I had asked him to personally set the library on fire. He walked slowly to the climate-controlled vault and returned with the first sacrificial lamb. It was the centerpiece of our collection, a 16th-century herbal, its pigskin binding still supple after 500 years, its pages filled with breathtaking, hand-painted illustrations of medicinal plants, the colors still vibrant, the vellum still creamy. It was a one-of-a-kind masterpiece, insured for over $2 million. He placed it on the scanner bed with the reverence of a priest placing a holy text on an altar. Mr. Davies's directive stipulates using the automated features for maximum efficiency. I stated, my voice a flat monotone. Activate the automated page turner and the high-resolution, full-color skin setting. Peter's hand trembled as he pushed the button. The machine whirred to life. A brutally bright, hot light flooded the page, a light designed for modern, coated paper, not for delicate, hand-mixed organic pigments. We could literally smell the ancient vellum parch, a scent like burning history. Then came the automated page turner, a small rubber wheel and a plastic arm. It descended, gripped the corner of the first priceless page, and tried to turn it with the same force it would use on a sheet of copy paper. But the vellum was not copy paper. It was stiff, ancient, and brittle. We heard a sound I will never forget. A soft, final, tearing sound. The corner of the page ripped, taking a small part of an illustrated flower with it. Peter let out a small, strangled gasp. I remained impassive. Log the damage, Peter, I said calmly, and continue to the next page. That was how our month of horrors began. We were not librarians anymore. We were methodical, efficient executioners of culture. Each day, we would follow the same brutal routine. A book would be brought out. I would take high resolution before photographs, documenting its perfect, pre-scanned state. Then it would be placed on the machine. We would listen to the sickening crunch as the scanner lid was automatically closed with pneumatic force, flattening and cracking the delicate, hand-stitched spines. We would smell the acrid odor of 500-year-old glue cooking under the intense heat of the lamps. We would watch in silent horror as the automated feeder tore at the edges of the pages. After the scan was complete, I would take the after photographs, documenting every new crack, every tear, every warped and scorched page. Each piece of damage was meticulously logged in a spreadsheet with a timestamp, the book's catalog number, and a cross-reference to the project directive number. We were building a mountain of evidence, one destroyed masterpiece at a time. About 2 weeks into the project, Mr. Davies, in his infinite wisdom, decided to pay us a visit to check on the progress of his signature efficiency initiative. He strode into the West Wing, a smug, self-satisfied smile on his face, a tablet tucked under his arm. "Eleanor," he boomed, "show me the magic. Let's see how much of this dusty old inventory we've gotten through." He expected to see a humming, optimized workflow. He expected to see his vision of a modernized, 21st century library. Instead, he walked into a scene of cultural carnage. The room was divided in two. On one side were the books waiting for their execution, pristine and beautiful. On the other side was what could only be described as a book morgue. The scanned volumes were laid out on long tables, their spines broken and splayed open like cracked ribs. Pages were warped into wavy, unrecognizable shapes. Fragments of illuminated manuscripts and shredded leather bindings littered the floor. The air was thick with the funereal smell of burnt paper and decay. Davies's smug smile faltered. His eyes widened, the color draining from his face. What is this?" he stammered, his voice a choked whisper. "This is the project, Mr. Davies," I said, my voice neutral. "We are averaging 22 volumes a day, just as you projected. We are perfectly on schedule to meet your end-of-month deadline." He walked over to one of the tables and picked up a book, or what was left of it. It was a first edition of Galileo's Dialogues. He held it in his hands, and its spine, fatally weakened by the scanner's pressure, simply gave way. The book split in two, its pages cascading to the floor like dead leaves. The panic in his eyes turned to pure, unadulterated rage. He spun around, his face a mask of fury, and pointed a trembling finger at me. "You," he screamed. "What have you done? I put you in charge of this. This is sabotage. This is negligence of the highest order. You have destroyed them." Right at that moment, as if on cue, the door to the West Wing opened. The university president, Dr. Alistair Finch, walked in, accompanied by a distinguished-looking older gentleman. I recognized him instantly. It was Mr. Abernathy, the grandson of the man who had donated the entire West Wing collection to the university, and one of its most significant financial donors. I had, of course, sent a discreet, anonymous tip to the president's office an hour earlier about a potential conservation issue in the library that required his immediate attention. "Davies, what in God's name is going on in here?" The president, demanded, his eyes wide with horror as he took in the scene of devastation. Davies saw his chance. He immediately rounded on me, his voice filled with righteous indignation. "President Finch, thank God you're here," he exclaimed. "I've just uncovered a disaster. I put Eleanor in charge of this digitization project, and she has, through either gross incompetence or deliberate sabotage, destroyed a significant portion of the collection. I hold her entirely responsible." The president and Mr. Abernathy both turned to look at me, their faces grim. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stood my ground, my hands clasped calmly in front of me. "Mr. President," I said, my voice resonating in the now silent room, "I share Mr. Davies's horror at this outcome. It is a profound tragedy. However, I can assure you that my team and I have been following the project's official, written directive with the utmost precision, and to the very letter." I walked over to a table where a thick, neatly organized 3-ring binder was sitting. It was labeled, simply, Digitization Project Documentation. As the project lead, I continued, I have, of course, kept meticulous records of every step of this process. I opened the binder and placed it on the table in front of the president. "The first section," I said, turning the page, "contains the memos and the detailed 8-page risk assessment I submitted to Mr. Davies 6 weeks ago, outlining in precise detail the exact damage that the ScanMax 5000 units would inflict on the collection." The president's eyes widened as he scanned the pages. "The second section," I said, turning to the next tab, "contains a complete photographic log, a before and after photo for every single volume we have processed, detailing the specific damage incurred during the scanning procedure. As you can see here with the Galileo." I pointed to the photos documenting the book's pristine condition, and then its utter destruction. Mr. Abernathy let out a low groan. "And the final section," I said, my voice dropping slightly, "is the most important. It contains the official project directive." I turned to the last page in the binder. There it was. The email, printed in full color, with the header showing that it was from Mr. Davies, and that the president himself had been CC'd. I had taken the liberty of highlighting the key phrases. Entire West Wing collection, exclusively the ScanMax 5000 units, and no exceptions. At the very back of the binder was my final, cheerful email confirming that his order would be followed with full and complete compliance. President Finch read the email. His face, which had been pale with shock, slowly turned a deep, furious red. He looked from the printed words on the page to the mountains of destroyed, irreplaceable books, and then he turned his gaze upon Mr. Davies. He didn't need to say a word. The silence was more damning than any accusation. Davies was trapped. He was cornered. His own words, his own arrogant, dismissive, idiotic words, had built a cage around him from which there was no escape. He had signed his own death warrant, and he had CC'd the executioner. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Mr. Davies was fired that afternoon. The university's legal team immediately began proceedings to sue him for the full, multi-million-dollar value of the destroyed assets. His career as a brilliant efficiency expert was over. His reputation not just tarnished, but nuked from orbit. I was asked to lead a new, university-wide archival preservation and restoration committee, and was given a nearly unlimited budget to begin the heartbreakingly slow and expensive process of trying to salvage what we could. Last week, I was a keynote speaker at a global conference on rare book conservation in Florence. I presented a case study on the catastrophic effects of improper digitization techniques. It was very well received. They called me a hero. a visionary in the field of preservation. But I'm not a hero. I'm just a librarian who understands the value of a written record. When an arrogant fool gives you a stupid order, you don't argue, you don't resign, you obey. You follow that order so perfectly, so meticulously, that the consequences of their own stupidity become an undeniable, documented fact. He wanted me to be compliant, so I complied him right out of a job and right into the history books as a cautionary tale. And that, I've found, is the most satisfying kind of revenge-o-fall.